Britain. Number 10. Triumph Mayflower, 1949 to 1953. Small, formal, and dressed up in a suit several sizes too stiff for its size, the Mayflower was built by Triumph, a subsidiary of the Standard Motor Company, at Coventry. More than 35,000 were produced, making it a common sight on British roads through the early and mid-50s. Triumph pitched it as a small luxury car, wrapping the razor-edge styling normally reserved for expensive limousines around a compact, affordable saloon. Would you have wanted an executive look on a modest budget? That razor-edge styling was, in fact, a deliberate scaled-down echo of Triumph's much larger renown, meaning buyers got the visual language of a limousine on a genuinely small chassis. A car built to make a modest income look considerably less modest than it was. Number 9. MG MGA, 1955 to 1962. Sleek, sporty, and built almost entirely with an eye on customers who weren't even in the country, the MGA launched in 1955 from MG's works at Abingdon. More than 100,000 were produced, an extraordinary figure for a dedicated sports car in this era, with the overwhelming majority earmarked for export, especially to the United States. Would you have guessed a British sports car sold better abroad than at home? The MGA's smooth, enveloping body was a radical departure from the traditional upright MG shape that had defined the marque for decades, and the gamble paid off so completely it became one of the best-selling sports cars Britain ever exported. Number 8. Vauxhall PA Velox and Cresta, 1948 to 1965. Chrome-heavy, road-hugging, and about as close as Britain got to importing a slice of Detroit, the Velox and Cresta were built by Vauxhall at Luton, with more than 300,000 produced across their run. Salesmen and aspirational middle-class buyers were drawn to styling that looked unmistakably American at a time when most British saloons still looked resolutely British. Would that transatlantic glamour have been worth the trade-off? It came at a genuine cost. The Velox and Cresta became notorious among owners for rust, with bodywork that struggled to cope with British weather in a way their American inspirations never had to. A car that looked like it belonged in California and rusted like it had never left Luton. Number 7. Rover P4, 1949 to 1959. Sober, substantial, and adored by exactly the sort of buyer who never wanted to be seen showing off. The P4 was built by Rover at Solihull through most of the decade. Bank managers and solicitors made it a familiar sight outside British high streets, earning it the affectionate nickname Auntie Rover for its dependable, faintly old-fashioned respectability. Would you have expected anything experimental from a car like that? This famously conservative saloon quietly formed the basis of the experimental Rover Jet 1, one of the world's first gas turbine-powered cars, capable of exceeding 150 miles per hour in testing. Underneath the tweed jacket image sat a manufacturer willing to bolt a jet engine to its most sensible car just to see what would happen. We're halfway through the list, and the next 3 cars sold in numbers and carried secrets that would surprise even their own manufacturers. Number 6. Standard Vanguard, 1947 to 1963. Rounded, dependable, and quietly first through a door most of its rivals hadn't even noticed was there, the Vanguard was built by the Standard Motor Company in Coventry, remaining in steady production across the decade. Its bulbous, American-inspired styling and roomy cabin made it a popular family and export saloon. Would you have expected this old-fashioned-looking car to lead the way on new technology? In 1954, the Vanguard became the first British car ever offered with a diesel engine, years before diesel power became a mainstream consideration for ordinary motorists. Number 5. Hillman Minx, 1931 to 1970. Familiar under more badges than most buyers ever realized, and reliable enough that nobody minded, the Minx was built by the Roots Group, with Marks V through 8 the most common versions on 1950s roads. Its steady, unremarkable competence made it a dependable seller across nearly 4 decades of production. Would it have bothered you to learn your car had 3 secret twins? The same basic Minx design was routinely sold with only cosmetic differences as a Humber, a Singer, or a Sunbeam, meaning a substantial share of Britain's mid-sized saloon market was, underneath the badge, essentially one car sold 4 different ways. Number 4. Ford Popular, 1953 onward. Cheap, basic, and proud of exactly how little it offered for the money, The popular launched in 1953 from Ford UK's Dagenham plant and immediately became the least expensive car available in Britain. Buyers who simply wanted to own a car at all, with no expectation of comfort thrown in, made it a strong seller through the decade. Would you have paid extra just for a sun visor? Ford stripped the popular down so aggressively to hit its rock-bottom price that sun visors were sold as a separate paid extra, and yet the sheer novelty of genuinely affordable car ownership meant thousands of British families bought one anyway. Number 3. Ford Anglia, 1939 to 1967. Old-fashioned looking, endlessly reliable, and still finding new buyers decades after its shape first appeared, the Anglia was built by Ford UK, with more than 1.5 million produced across its full run, a huge share of them sold through the 1950s. Its low running costs and Ford's dealer network made it one of the most consistently popular family cars of the decade. Would you have noticed if your car's bones were 20 years older than its body? The Anglia's basic mechanical layout traced back to a design first shown in the 1930s, meaning many 1950s buyers were, underneath a refreshed body, driving considerably older engineering than the car appeared to carry, without ever noticing on the road. Number 2. Morris Minor, 1948 to 1971. Roomy, sweet handling, and quietly the car more ordinary British families actually lived their lives in than almost anything else on this list. The Minor launched in 1948, designed by Alec Isagones and built by Morris Motors at Cowley. More than 1.6 million were manufactured across its run, with the Series 2 and Minor 1000 the common sights on 1950s roads. Its compact, economical design and surprisingly spacious cabin made it a natural choice for post-war British families rebuilding ordinary life. Would you have wanted to own a piece of history without knowing it at the time? In 1961, the Minor became the first British car ever to sell more than 1 million units, a milestone Morris marked by building 350 special lilac-painted commemorative cars, one for every UK dealership, turning Britain's most sensible family saloon into, briefly, one of its most collectible. None of these totals, however, come close to what's waiting at the very top. Number 1. BMC Mini, 1959. And here it is. Number 1. A car born out of a fuel crisis that ended up rewriting the rulebook for what a small car could be. The Mini launched in 1959, built by the British Motor Corporation and designed under Alec Isagones in direct response to fuel shortages caused by the Suez Crisis, which had left BMC convinced Britain needed a genuinely small, genuinely efficient car. Over its full production life, more than 5.3 million original Minis were sold worldwide, an almost unthinkable figure for a car this size. Would you have believed a car this small could change the shape of every small car after it? The Mini's transverse engine and front-wheel drive layout, squeezing the mechanicals into a footprint smaller than almost anyone believed possible, became the fundamental template that the vast majority of small cars built anywhere in the world still follow today, more than half a century later. A car designed to solve one specific fuel crisis ended up permanently changing the basic architecture of the automobile itself, and along the way became as much a symbol of Britain as anything the era produced. That is why it sits at number 1. So there you have it, 10 cars that didn't just fill Britain's driveways, they built the modern British motorist. From a small saloon dressed as a limousine, to a sports car that sold better abroad than at home, to a fuel crisis afterthought that ended up redesigning the small car forever. Which of these would you have driven back then? Let us know which one surprised you most in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through Britain's golden age of motoring, consider subscribing to Untold Vehicle Stories for more forgotten stories from British automotive history, and we'll see you in the next amazing video.